Good morning, everyone, from a different Melbourne today. Not only do we have a new premier, but it is crazy weather out there. We've had a wonderful run in this winter, but that all changed this morning. We'll give you a look at Port Phillip Bay. Not that you'll see much, other than grey skies, lots of rain, bit of wind, and I think she's going to be belting down. This is the sort of weather that sets in for most of the day, sadly. You'll get an idea across the bay what she looks like. It's set in, so we're in for. We probably need it. We're in for a wet and miserable day. Hopefully, all the reservoirs and dams fill up beautifully, because without that, the summer becomes a bit of a problem. So here's my co-host JJ at my feet as usual. Right at my feet as usual, and he'll stay there for about 5 minutes before gravitating to that beautiful, comfortable couch in the background. So, as we always do, we start off with our Bible read. Sorry, just getting everything in place. If you see me rushing downstairs later on in the program, I don't usually have the laptop up here without the charger. So if the battery starts to fail on me, which I don't think it will, but if it does, I'll be rushing downstairs to get that charger. So just so you know, heads up, I'm experimenting a bit today. So it'll just say, because my main office is downstairs. This is just a better lighting up here. So I come up here into it's an upstairs office. So what do they call it? The men's room or whatever, the men's, when they get away from everything. Not they have to get away from everything except my dog. And I can never get away from him because he's always at my feet. What am I doing? So, good news time. Where is my glasses? I'll tell you what, I saw James Newbury, the opposition treasurer yesterday. One, what a wanker he is. Number two, and the media, surely they could have got him a better set of glasses. I mean, if you get on the Sky News, have a look at the interview they did with him if you can, and you'll see what I mean. This is a guy who's trying to present himself to win votes. And I hate wearing my glasses. I don't need them all the time, fair enough, but, they do make me look like a librarian. So maybe I'm just a bit too sus about it. What are we up to? July 29th. All right, remember, Deuteronomy 4:5-14. When God's people told their children about the Lord God, it was more than just a story. They relived the event. It spurred them to obedience. I have taught you all the laws as the Lord my God told me to do. Obey them in the land that you're about to invade and occupy. Obey them faithfully, and this will show the people of other nations how wise you are. When they hear all of these laws, they will say, what wisdom and understanding this great nation has. No other nation, no matter how great, has a God who is so near when they need him as the Lord our God is to us. He answers us whenever we call for help. No other nation, no matter how great, has laws so just as those that I have taught you today. Be on your guard. Make certain that you do not forget, as long as you live, what you have seen with your own eyes. Tell your children and your grandchildren about the day you stood in the presence of the Lord, your God, at Mount Sinai. When he said to me, assemble the people, I want them to hear what I have to say, so that they will learn to obey me as long as they live, and so that they will teach their children to do the same. Tell your children how you went and stood at the foot of the mountain, which is covered with thick clouds and dark smoke, and fire blazing up to the sky. Tell them how the Lord spoke to you from the fire, how you heard him speaking, but did not see him in any form at all. He told you what you must do to keep the covenant he made with you. You must obey the 10 commandments, which he wrote on 2 stone tablets. The Lord told me to teach you all the laws that you are to obey in the land that you're about to invade and occupy. The promised land, eh? Hasn't there been a lot of fighting over that piece of land, realty in human history? But, that's from 3,000 years ago. And here we are. We still talk about it. We still read about it. We still share the story about it. And to this day, I think it's still relevant. And you'll say, well, how's that relevant? Well, up until the probably early mid-60s, Australia was a real stoic Christian country, okay? And we were a blessed country. We had everything you could want as a nation and as citizens of that nation. We had a great way of life. People could afford to buy their homes, run a business, send their kids to school on one wage. The nuclear family was a real thing. You had your dad go out and work, your mum raised the family. Don't underestimate that too. A lot of people put that down. Those mums in those days that raised families and ran the household were awesome. My mum was an absolute angel. So, and she would have been worth every penny she would have earned in every job just raising us kids. So, we didn't quite have the white picket fence, but, we had a home, we had a base, all that sort of thing. And life was just more simple, easier, and more relaxed. Australians were a very relaxed society. But you didn't need to push us, because if we did, we'd fight. Nowadays, it's funny, we've lost a lot of focus on that. And I do think we've lost a lot of that culture, which is a sad thing to see. And we had that culture right up until the turn of the last century. So, probably up to 9/11. Let's be honest. 9/11 was probably the turning point for a lot of things. The 25 years since 9/11 has been so hectic and so bizarre. We find ourselves in the current situation we are, not just here in Australia, but globally. And I do think a lot of the difficult issues we're going through, and this is just my opinion, you can call me crazy if you like. I do think because we have turned away from our faith, our Christian faith that built this country, maybe we are paying for it, but we're still a blessed country. But we're not as blessed as what we used to be. And here we are fighting for our very cultural lives, what it means to be an Australian. Albanese and ALP across this country are trying to introduce this concept of a new modern Australia. In other words, they want to change us from the old Australia, which they've been wanting to do since Gough Whitlam came to power. Gough Whitlam didn't like Australia, the larrikin Australian. He hated it. Same with Paul Keating. Same with Kevin Rudd. One after another, they all hated it. So, so we have turned away from that. And then they go, well, how's the Old Testament relevant? Well, the 10 Commandments are in the Old Testament, which is a core base of Christianity. And even Jesus himself, when he asked the key to go into heaven, was to obey the 10 Commandments plus one of his, the 11th. And that was simple. Love one another as I've loved you. So we certainly aren't doing a lot of that, are we? There's not a lot of love for each other going around in this country and globally. So we're failing in many ways. If you believe in Christ, if you believe in God the Father, if you believe in that Bible, we're failing both of them in many ways. So didn't mean to evangelize. I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to make that relevant to that passage. So anyway, that's where we're at. So yesterday, what a day in politics, eh? While I was doing my little morning episode and shocked at myself again, getting up in the morning, coffee time. And yes, as some of you have said, that's a big cup of coffee. One of my players bought that for me as a thank you as a coach. I don't know. When I first got it, I thought, do I need that big a mug? What's he saying? I just, out of fun, started having my coffee out of it. Now I'm addicted to it. It was a good gift. But yeah, yesterday, while I was doing my little morning Eureka Conservative, there was all sorts of shenanigans going on in Victoria. And this time with the Victorian ALP, not the Liberal Party, which is a change. We all sort of probably had our suspicions it was going to happen, but they were getting closer to the election to the point, well, it's getting too late. And it may prove to be that way, but their internal polling must be atrocious. It must be really bad for them to do what they did yesterday, to get rid of Jacinta and replace her. And it wasn't taken well within their they've got so much ammunition now, the Liberals. I mean, the reporters were live outside their party room meeting, hearing yelling at each other. So it obviously got pretty feisty. And from all reports, I don't remember the one, but one of Jacinta Allen's acolytes decided to challenge Ben Carroll. Now, if that had gone ahead, they would have had, because of Kevin Rudd, a 6-week campaign amongst their internal members, the ALP membership, to decide their next leader, and they would have had to appoint an interim premier. All their dirty laundry would have come out in public over 6 weeks. They would have been at each other's throats. It's a pity. It would have been great entertainment. It's a pity it didn't happen. But just the whole, the optics of that was just show the incompetence of the ALP. Imagine in such an important issue, if you're a political party and going to change leader, it's better for it to be seamless. So one goes for the good of the party, the good of the state, and the next person comes in. That's what they were trying to do. But it backflipped. And the media coverage I'm getting was atrocious. So it's now given all this ammunition. And I hate to give the Liberal Party credit, but they must have got some new media people in. I don't know. Or they've got their act together, because they came out straight away with some pretty good ads attacking Ben Carroll. So at least on their communication sides, they seem to have got their act together. I still can't stand the bastards. And I can't stand the moderates within their ranks. I mean, I saw 2 of them yesterday, and I'm thinking nothing's changed. So James Newbury, and who's the member for Brighton just up the road from me, and David Southwick from Caulfield. And they're both just morons. And that's the problem we've got in Victoria. You know, the ALP have basically handed government to the Liberals, unless the Liberals somehow, which they've done in the past, manage to shoot themselves in the foot and decide we're going to lose this. Now, that is not beyond the realistic chances. I do think Jess Wilson is a more capable leader than Matthew Guy. Matthew Guy is an idiot. He's proven to be an idiot, and he's certainly not a politician. But he'll be a cabinet minister in the next Liberal government. Well, I should say LNP government. So, you know, we're left with an ALP in tatters. We've got an LNP government, opposition that doesn't really deserve government. And we've got a One Nation party who we don't know who the hell is, who their candidates are, who their leader is, who their cabinet is. That's the state of politics in Victoria. It's extremely sad. Victoria's got so much potential to be a great state. It really does. And despite our politicians making the mess they have, with all its faults, Melbourne's still a good city. I won't say a great city anymore. It's a good city. It's a good place to live. It's been good to me. And, you know, it's still the sports capital, for example. We've got a great infrastructure. There's plenty of people here with the knowledge to make this state great. But they're all turned away from the politics because of the idiots that are in it. Why would anyone want to get into it with this sort of farcical nonsense going on? So, sorry, every time I have my coffee, I get the hiccups. So, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. It'll be entertaining. On this show, we'll have a lot to talk about, but I'd actually prefer this show now to be boring, or me not to even have to do it. But we have to push back. One of the reasons I read that Christian passage every day is to push back against all this Islamophobia nonsense. You know, I'm a Catholic. I'm a Christian. I'm not a good one. Anyone who's followed me, I say that regularly. I'm not a good Christian. I wish I could be better. But that's what I was raised with. That's the culture of this country. And Albo and his acolytes, his state premiers and his delegates at his big Labor meetings, they're trying to change that. They're trying to change us into something we never, our founding fathers. I read a thing about Arthur Caldwell yesterday. He was totally opposed to immigration and allowing immigration, the current immigration that we've got, not totally opposed to immigration full stop, but he was basically a white nationalist. He would never have allowed immigration from Middle Eastern countries or Asian countries. He wanted to keep Australia a European nation. Now, whether you agree with that or not, what most people don't understand, it was the ALP that introduced the White Australia legislation. He brought that into law. It was so many of the ALP leaders that were the most rabid white nationalists you could ever find. So they wouldn't recognise the modern Labor Party. They wouldn't recognise the modern Australia. Am I saying we should go back to that? Absolutely not. I'm just stating what's a fact. And, you know, they are trying to change us in ways this country wasn't meant to be changed. It wasn't founded that way. It was never meant to be like this. Now, should we have opened up to immigration? Yeah, I'm supportive of that. Should we have opened up to immigration that tears apart our culture and divides us? Absolutely not. And that's what Albo's doing. That's what his acolytes are doing. They're dividing us. And they're bringing in immigration so they can farm their votes to keep them in power. It's as simple as that. All the other stuff is just bullshit. Don't listen to anything. They're bringing in this mass immigration so they have a core base to keep them in power. Without that added voter base, they wouldn't stay in power. It's that simple. So, and we'll hear a lot more over it between now and November in Victoria and between now and the next election. Interestingly, Paul Murray, can't stand the guy. He had Pauline Hanson on yesterday for a Q&A meeting. I watched it. I was aware of the policies that Pauline put in, and it was good she put in there about what she would do in the first 100 days. Anyone who watched it, go watch it if you can. But it did annoy me a bit. I mean, and I'll tell you why it annoyed me a bit. And it's not Pauline's fault. This is Paul Murray's fault. And News 24. They're rebranding the same old issues. Anyway, on News 24 with Paul Murray, they just got in an audience that was obviously pro-Hanson. And, you know, I get critical of other networks, and especially the ABC, who will bring in a stacked audience, like on Q&A, like they used to, a stacked audience to simply have a go at the centre-right politicians. I mean, what I want when I watch these shows is I want a mixed audience. I want all Australians in on it. I don't want to be a hypocrite. It would have been nice last night to have a few representations from the ALP and Greens to ask Pauline some tough questions that she may not have liked. We've got to see how, and not because I dislike Pauline, but I like Pauline. I'm not going to say about any politician, including Pauline, that I love them. They're a politician. They have to earn my vote. I don't have to give them my vote. And I certainly don't have to bow down at the altar of Pauline and One Nation, or the altar of Albo and the ALP, or the altar of Angus Taylor and the Liberal Party. I'm never, ever going to do that. I'm never going to kiss their feet. So where I need to be critical, I'm going to be critical. And so, for example, I'm critical of the fact we've got no bloody candidates in Victoria. I'll come to that in a minute. But Pauline needs to get tested by these media events, like every other politician needs to get tested. They need to get some tougher questions so we know who we're voting for. Paul Murray just went, and obviously Sky News went and handpicked a lot of people that are obviously One Nation supporters, which is fine. You can have them in the audience, but you've got to have some Liberal Party supporters in the audience that are opposed to Pauline, some ALP Party members in the audience to be opposed Pauline. Same with the Greens and even the Teals. Would have made for much better television. But we also would have seen what Pauline was like when confronted with those people. Because remember, if she wins government, let's say she becomes Prime Minister, she's governing for all Australians. She's not governing just for One Nation voters. You know, that's what should happen. Albo's only governing for ALP voters. He's not governing for all Australians. But when you become Prime Minister, that's part of the job. You've got a responsibility to every single Australian. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it always was, but has changed. Bob Hawke, I've got no doubt. I didn't agree with Bob Hawke on many things. I didn't agree with his ideology, but I've got no doubt he governed for all Australians. Same thing with John Howard. You can have all your differences and agreement on his policies and ideology, and people get wound up in that. I'm just talking, did he govern for all Australians? I think he actually did. And he came up with the, what was his line? What unites us is more important than what divides us. And I think that was one of the best lines in politics I've heard in a long time. That was in an interview. And he did reach out to the Howard battlers, who were traditionally Labor voters, and he won them over. So, you've got to go out there and you've got to pitch to everyone. And I definitely think Pauline's got a love for country, a love for Australia, and a love for her culture, which is why she's got me in her corner. But, you can say a lot of things, but then you got to walk the walk. When you get in government, you got to be able to introduce legislation. You got to be able to do the hard yards. You got to be able to get the votes. You've got to be able to lobby things. You've got to get legislation passed through 2 houses of parliament, and you got to bring it all into law. It's all right to say you oppose things, you're going to do these things, but then you got to do the dirty work. Now, it's a good recruitment. They've got Barnaby and Corey Bernardi in their ranks. They could give them some good advice, but they're going to need a lot more than that. That's federally. We haven't got anything state-wise. So, and I compare what they had in the South Australia, and everyone goes to me, well, One Nation, they didn't get Corey Bernardi till late. I can't remember his name, but they did have a One Nation leader who did amazing things in the lead up to that election and had candidates ready to go. We don't have that in Victoria. The One Nation supposed leaders, I keep saying this, and Warren and Bianca, I'll say it every day, and you are my first empty chair. Big announcement on the Eureka Conservative Daily. You guys will get a DM from me today. You are going to be my empty chair interview this week because you said you were going to come on. You haven't replied to any of my recent messages. You've gone to ground. I don't know why. So we'll do an empty chair interview with both Bianca and Warren Pickering from One Nation this week because we can't get them any other way. Now, that's bizarre beyond belief. I want to support One Nation. I want to give them every chance to be successful. I want a message delivered to the Liberal and ALP parties, both of whom do not deserve government. I don't think we've got a political organisation in this state that deserve government. But we've all got to decide who our government's going to be. So, the first empty chair interview goes to them. And there'll be plenty more after that. So I've got a long list. I'll try and put it together tomorrow and announce it. One thing that did concern me with the Pauline Hanson interview, other than being a soft interview, or a soft town hall, I suppose you'd call it, town hall interview. And it'll be interesting. I was critical of Sky News. I'll never get used. News 24 and Paul Murray. But maybe one of the conditions of getting Hanson on is they did vet and they only had One Nation supportive people. I don't know. Whoever came up with that, I don't think it was a good idea. For me, it didn't make for good television. I want to see the cut and thrust of politics. I want to see the battle of ideas. I don't want to see acolytes asking soft questions. So one of the soft questions they got was from 2 ladies in Victoria, obvious One Nation supporters, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. And they were asking about candidates for the Victorian election, which was good question. We all want to know. We all should know. And I've got to say, I wasn't convinced by the answer Pauline gave. She was talking, we're going to start making announcements in the next week. Hold on, be patient. We've been hearing that for some time. And then she said, I will start with the upper house ones and then go to the lower house. I'm going, you actually need them all pretty much. And I just don't understand the strategy. I mean, I can make assumptions as to why they're doing it, but that's all they are because they won't talk to me. Malcolm Roberts, to his credit, had a 2.5-hour interview with me. Why can't Bianca or Warren or anybody from One Nation come onto this program? I'm going to contact their office again today and say, just come on board. Monday to Friday, 9 o'clock. Tuesday nights, 8 till 10. Anytime you like. In fact, Tuesday nights, as long as you like. Or we can make a special event like a Thursday night and go as long as you like. We'll work around your schedules, whatever suits. But come and explain what the situation is with One Nation in Victoria. We are less than 4 months away. All the big movers are happening. It all happened yesterday. So I'm banging my drum about this because I'm a conservative who's frustrated that the party I want to support is nowhere to be seen while the others are gaining ground. So, and I don't want to see the Liberal Party just falling into government. They need to be held more accountable than that. So I'd like to see One Nation at least pick up some upper house seats where hopefully they can get the balance of power. Maybe with the Libertarians. I hope David Limbrick stays on. So that would be my wish list, is keep David Limbrick, get Tim Quilty back in, get a few One Nation ones in there. That lot can then hold the balance of power and keep the hopefully the Liberal National Party government honest. And hopefully you can even score a few lower house candidates and send some sort of message. But I still think you've missed a golden opportunity to win government. Had you been organised, and maybe, well, there's only two reasonings I can assume. Maybe the One Nation Party headquarters got caught out with this polling. And they weren't expecting to be polling so strongly in Victoria. And I can forgive them for that. I didn't expect this. I don't think anybody did. But it's been going on for a while now, ever since the Flinders by-election. And there's a lot of banging on about drums about your highest vote in a lower house seat. Well, what's happened since? Nothing. I looked at their Facebook page, nothing. In fact, let's get it up. Let's have a look at all their announcements. On there. I should have had this up. Sorry, guys. And Facebook is probably better than a anyway. Pauline's One Nations thing, Victoria. Okay, let's share this. And let's have a look at what they're doing. So there we go. Ricky Lee endorsed. So Ricky Lee Tyrell endorsed for Northern Victoria. Well, that's not a shock. She's in Parliament. So she's endorsed. She will be leading our upper house ticket in Northern Victoria. Ricky Lee was elected seat 4 years ago. So that's hardly a big announcement. Orange Wave is just getting bigger. Congratulations. The average working family has it tougher. Okay, so we got a little bit of policy. That was on 14 hours ago. Jacinta Allen's leadership on the line. So just news. Recreational hunting is finished, part of Australia's heritage and a way of life for thousands. So again, policy. A One Nation government would take every conceivable step to ensure ISIS policy. That's going back on July 22nd. Victorians are rejecting Labor's plan to phase out gas because they know it means. Again, that was July 22nd. ISIS. Okay, these are just, you could have a media person putting these up. Last 8 tickets. Okay, trivia night, Western Victoria, great. July 21st. And it goes on and on. Remember, it's just news reporting. Join us for an exciting trivia fundraiser. Great. One Nation head office receiving calls from disgruntled tradies. That was a national thing. I remember seeing that. One night, Ricky Lee. Ricky Lee, come on my podcast. We're not as big as News 24, but it'd be interesting to be talking about someone. I will give you, by the way, a lot more time to speak than News 24 ever will. Polls. So as you can see, trivia night, it gets a big pounding. Let's go to the start of July. Gen X Apora. Yeah, we all knew that. Don't bother applying to be a lecturer in mathematical physics. Yeah, because, yeah, Uni Melbourne. So it's all news. Yeah, we know you're on the rise. We want to know who your candidates are because it won't work out otherwise, July 7th. Much excitement in media who are as democracy breathed again in socialist Victoria, right, dominating the polls for now. Support is brewing for the Victorian branch party that has no leader, one MP, and only one potential candidate to speak of. Extraordinary. And this surge isn't, well, that's its problem. You know, I mean, well, it is extraordinary, but that's also its problem. Imagine what that vote would be if you actually had an opposition leader. We had an opposition spokesperson for Treasury. We had a field of candidates for the upper house. They were putting out policy every day. They had someone going on the media day in, day out. A big thank you to everyone who attended our Eastern Victorian trivia night. Lots of trivia nights going on. July 4th, nothing. Factionalism, nothing. Will Jess Wilson do what is needed to done to save Victoria? So it's just all opinion, and, I could do this. Sorry, I'm not trying to be critical. I'll stop sharing. I really aren't. Well, I'm being critical. I don't want to be critical. But all of that, trivia nights, opinion pieces, news updates, and one candidate announcement made just today about Northwestern Victoria for an elected MP. I mean, we know who she is. She's been, well, especially those in Northwestern Victoria know who she is, I should say. Probably not many people in Melbourne do. But even Ricky is not on the media that often. She's not a well-known face. So if you announce the leader, for example, they would get lots of media opportunity to go in and explain. So Ricky Lee Tyrell, do you know that name? So it's not a well-known person. It's not a well-known voice. It's not a well-known face. So One Nation, please, 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 please come on board. Talk to me on the podcast. Let us know what's going on, because the Liberals are in the news. ALP's in the news. Any news is good news. You got to get some exposure out there, and it's got to start happening. Otherwise, all we're left with pretty much is a choice between one useless mob and the other useless mob. So I don't care. I'm not even too concerned about whether your candidates get canned, because that could be the only other reason too, is that you're not only were you surprised by the polling, that you're worried that the media is going to scrape through in the background of every candidate you put up, so you're protecting them. That's sort of a silly strategy, because you'd rather them do it now for all their faults. You'd rather media go through that now than if you get a few in a government, and then once they're in government, you find out about it then. So I would be getting my candidates up and have a strategy to counter anything that came from the media about. They will trawl through your candidates whenever you announce them. Better to do it, get it over and done with now, rip the Band-Aid off, and give those people a chance to get out in their electorates and start campaigning. They should be doing it now. So I guarantee I'm getting mail now from both Liberal and Labor candidates in my mailbox. They're out probably banging on the doors. Now, I know you don't have the resources or the volunteer group to do that, but if you had candidates in place, you can at least have them going to events and trying everything, start a podcast like I do. Anyway, so that's the state of politics in Victoria. It's sad to see. But it's entertaining at least. But that's where we are. We've got a choice of basically the three. You've got a choice to go with what independent. But based on the record of independents lately, why would you vote independent? It's a protest. It's a protest vote, I suppose. And I'm not knocking anyone for a protest vote. In fact, I'm sympathetic towards it. But the problems facing our state and this country are too large now. I voted in the last election, but I knew Albo was getting back in. That was a fait accompli before it even started. So no harm, no foul. This one's different. This one we can bring about change. And any change is welcome change in Victoria. I can't stand the Liberals, but they're better than ALP. So if that's the vote I've got, that's the vote I'll take. It's not the vote I want. The vote I want is a legitimate One Nation candidate in my electorate, and I'll vote for them. But at the moment, I've got none. So, and I don't want some random who I know nothing about. I'm not so sure about everyone else. It's not a critique of anyone else. I actually research my candidates. I want to meet them. I want to talk to them. I want to understand them. And then I'll decide who I vote for. Now, I know a lot about the ALP and LNP, but I'll still have a look at their candidates. I won't have a look at the Greens candidates or the Teals. But I'd love to have a real good, close look at a One Nation candidate in a positive way. Can't do that until they nominate someone for my electorate or any electorate. We'll talk to any of them. So anyway, our first empty seat interview this Friday, Warren Pickering, and I'll get a name up. I'll mispronounce it. I don't want to do that. So I'll get a name up. Bianca, I think it's Conchita sort of something. Just bear with me while I get it up. Bianca Colachia. I'll DM her and Warren Pickering again today, and maybe they'll come on. Instead of an empty chair meeting, maybe we can get all three of us together. And let's chat about One Nation this Friday. Whether you're here or not, guys, I'm chatting about One Nation. I've already chatted a bit today about One Nation, but we'll go through your Facebook pages and we'll have a look at what policies you've got, and we'll do a phantom interview. I'd rather have you guys on, but anyway, we'll see where it goes. Anyway, that's enough of a rant for today. Let's get into our social media. See what's news, what's not. Again, been doing this 5 times a week. It's get out of there. Going home. I haven't done a lot with the bookmarks, I've got to be honest. But let's see what I've got. Eureka. If I've got anything, that shouldn't be in there. That shouldn't be in there. Let's have a listen to this guy. Now, this guy's worth a listen. Now, I've said One Nation and Pauline Hanson, you need to study this argument. You need to learn it, embrace it, and then they can use this to push back against the media and the opposition. This is a really different angle to look at immigration. I was going to play this yesterday. I forgot to. Have a listen to this guy.
People say that mass immigration into the United States can help reduce world poverty. Is that true? Well, no, it's not. And let me show you why. This gumball represents the 1 million legal immigrants that the United States has taken every year on average since 1990. Now, who in the world deserves our humanitarian compassion? The World Bank has one measure of the desperately poor of the world. They make less than $2 a day.
$2 a day. How do you know?
How many people make less than $2 a day in the world? We'll start with Africa. In Africa alone,
this is crazy.
There are 650 million people who make less than $2 a day. 650 million. And in India, another 890 million people, desperately poor. China adds another 480 million people, making less than $2 a day. And unfortunately, the rest of Asia has a heartbreaking 810 million people who the World Bank says make less than $2 a day. And finally, there's 105 million of Latin.
That's crazy. How do people survive on $2 a day? That's insane. But keep listening.
America's population that are desperately poor. All told, the World Bank says there are 3 billion people in the world. 3 billion people who are desperately poor, making less than $2 a day. That's 3,000 gumballs. And every year, we take 1 million and suggest that we've somehow made a humanitarian difference. Of course, we don't pull our immigrants from these desperately poor populations, do we? These people are too poor, too sick, too disconnected to make it here as immigrants.
And that's actually, if we're being a Christian nation, they're actually the very people that we should be looking to try and help. A lot of our immigration should be about compassion and helping people if we're truly a Christian nation. Keep listening.
We tend to pull our immigrants out of the better off poor of the world. And Mexico tends to define the type of immigrant that we bring here because the plurality of people come from Mexico. And Mexico is poor. How many people in the world live in countries that have average incomes lower than that of Mexico? And the World Bank tells us that that number is these 3 billion plus another 2.6 billion people. 5.6 billion people in the world who live in countries with average incomes below that of Mexico.
Wow.
That's 5,600 gumballs. And so what is it that the elites are telling us? They're telling us that when we take this 1 million immigrants, that we somehow or another are tackling world poverty. And we have to do it regardless of the effect on our unemployed, the working poor, the most vulnerable members of our society, regardless of the effect on our natural resources. Even if we went by the most radical proposals in Washington which are to actually double our immigration to 2 million a year, which would totally overwhelm our physical, natural, and social infrastructures, we couldn't make a noticeable difference.
Now, remember, this guy's an American. They've gone, under Biden, they went way over 2 million a year. And in Australia, we're pushing 500,000 in a small country. What are the reasons for that? Be interesting. Let's keep listening.
And we may be really hurting the impoverished people of the world because the million that we do take are among the most energetic, often the better educated, certainly the most dissatisfied people that if they did not immigrate would be the agents for change to improve the lot of all the people in these countries.
And that's the most powerful argument he's making.
The true heroes in the global humanitarian field are the people in these countries who have the wherewithal to immigrate to another country, but instead stay in their countries to apply their skills to help their fellow countrymen. Unfortunately, our immigration system tends to entice these very type of people to abandon their countrymen. The impossibility of making even a dent is actually worse than it looks here. Because last year, when we took 1 million immigrants, these countries added, births over deaths, 80 million more people into the impoverished population.
This is nuts. This is what he's doing here.
And this year, Congress is bringing in 1 million legal immigrants. And this year, according to the United Nations, these countries are expected to add another 80 million people. And next year, you can be quite sure that Congress, unless stopped by the American voters, will bring in another 1 million immigrants. And these countries, unfortunately, will be adding another 80 million people into these impoverished nations. We could take 5 million a year, but we'd never get ahead of what's happening in these countries. Not in this century. Don't you see? Immigration can never be an effective or significant way to deal with the suffering people of the world. They have to be helped where they live. 99.9% of them will never be able to immigrate to a rich country. There's no hope for that. They have to bloom where they're planted. The only place that 99.9% of these people can be helped is where they live. Let's help them there.
That is an incredibly powerful argument against immigration. I'm not against immigration. I'll keep repeating that. If you come with me in my life, I deal with immigrant families all the time. And a lot of them are wonderful people, and they're fleeing their old countries and doing all this sort of thing. There has to be some immigration. But I believe, okay? So Pauline Hanson, for example, was talking about 130,000 a year. Whether that's too high, too low, it can't be mass immigration. It can't be overwhelming immigration. But his argument is, if we have that mass immigration and we take the best of the best from those third world countries, we're actually doing more harm than good globally. We're being a selfish nation because we're taking the people that could change things in their country and we're trying to use them to our benefit within this country. And to make it worse, a lot of that immigration is coming into this country for political means to keep people like Albo in power. And then he sells it as multiculturalism, how wonderful it is that we're giving people a chance at a new life. But on the flip side, we have the left that want to destroy our history because of our colonialist nature. Isn't this just a different form of colonialism? You know, we are going to these third world countries, many of that used to be under English rule, and we're taking their best people and we're bringing them to Australia and giving them a life they would not otherwise have. Let's say it's in India. And we're robbing India of those people to build up India. Build businesses in India, build families in India. invent solutions to a lot of their health and infrastructure problems, a lot of their rubbish problems in their streets. Oh, excuse me, guys. I've got to go get that charge. I'll be back in a minute. Give me 2 ticks. Okay. No, I'm still going. I think I'm still going. Hi, everyone. Sorry, my computer crashed. So anyway, I'll double check that I'm on still. Oh, my God. Chaos, IT. That was a silly move by myself. Sorry for the gap, but yeah, I'm still going. Thank God. Yeah, my computer crashed. That's interesting. You learn something new every day. So I learned my battery doesn't last the hour, and that even if my computer crashes, the stream goes on. So if you had nothing on your end, I'm so sorry. Anyway, we're back trending in Australia. So anyway, I'll finish off with that that video that we just had with the marbles on it, different marble video. But that's a powerful argument. So that's a really good argument to be putting up against multiculturalism. Multiculturalism actually hurts the third world countries that these people are leaving. Now, some of them obviously are leaving oppressive governments, and we should consider that. You know, if they're facing some sort of life-threatening action from a government, we should be considering that. There's not. We should be a compassionate country. I've got no issue with that whatsoever. But should we be taking the best and brightest minds from a country like India? They're not going to face oppression. They're not going to have a better life in India than what they have in Australia. But should those people be staying in India to try and make it a better place to live? The answer to that is yes. They're Indians. They live in India. They should have a patriotism towards their country. You know? So, you know, it is a difficult conversation. But as that guy just said, there's 99.9% of the populations in third world countries who live on less than $2 a day. We should be helping to lift them up by the bootstraps rather than welcoming this overwhelming immigration. I'd actually support that. If that was actually happening, I would even go as far to say I could actually see myself supporting some sort of foreign aid if it meant that people in other countries could have a better way of life where they would want to stay there. So the United Nations could play a hand in this, for example, like not accept any country that is not meeting certain criteria and providing democracy, a way of life, good cost of living. That all should be a requirement to be a member of the UN, but they can't do that because when they established the UN, Russia and China were two of the big players in the Security Council, and they were communist countries. They didn't give their people the vote. I shouldn't say Russia, I should say the Soviet Union. So that's gone on to this day. UN's a waste of time. But if our foreign aid was going to help another country to raise itself up so their people could enjoy a better quality of life and they didn't have to immigrate to Australia and they can make their country better, would we support that foreign aid? Yeah, I don't like supporting foreign aid to spend, you know, whatever it is, 600 million on a rugby stadium in New Guinea. I don't see how that's actually helping a country bring itself up. But anyway, the One Nation, you should be studying that argument. You should be ready to put it. When a media person comes to why are you a racist? They go, no, I just think everybody should have the access to good government, even in other countries. And when we bring in mass immigration, we're defeating that objective. Multiculturalism is helping defeat that objective of helping the poor in third world countries. Now, tell me what media person is going to actually have an argument back against that? When they're coming debates, if you have that debate, no one's going to have that argument back. So please, Pauline, hopefully you watch this. I'm going to contact your office. You should be mounting this argument with immigration. And I think it's a winning argument. Albo couldn't argue against it. He's for the working man. He's a union man. Surely he has to be for the working man in some country in Zimbabwe, for example, in Africa. He's Sudan. Surely he should support the principle of helping the poor in other countries to lift their lives so they can enjoy a similar way of life to what we enjoy here in Australia. We should be helping them where they live, not bringing them here. Is that reasonable? I think that's a very reasonable, humane argument. And not because we're racist, because we want to help them. It would be such a strong argument. It would be counter to everything that Albo is going to throw at One Nation. So One Nation, you need to watch this. You need to think about it. You need to study it, what this guy said. And then you need to figure out how you can use these in pushback against the narrative you're going to get coming to you. So, yeah, that would be my advice to One Nation. Let's get back into it now. I've got my power back. Well, I've got to share again. So sorry, everyone. Oh, no, now I need my charger up here. Just to do all this, I've got to come upstairs and I've got to lob everything up and down. So where were we? So that was that argument. Oh, yeah, no, that's what I didn't think I added much there. I'll play to finish off with for today. I want to play. I think this is another important. It goes for 8 minutes, so I'd say watch it. It's about the Fabian Society. Not many people know about this, but we should. Gough Whitlam was a Fabian, part of the society. So was Bob Hawke. So is Albo. I'm pretty sure Dan Andrews is. There's a whole bunch of Australian politicians that are part of it. Let's have a listen to what it says.
London, 1884. A group of socialists sit down with a plan that will outlive every one of them. Remake Britain without a revolution. Alright, but how? Well, get inside the institutions, influence the people running them, change the country, one law at a time. They called themselves the Fabian Society. Their method was called permeation. Councils, universities, the civil service, parliament. Put your people and ideas where decisions are made. Bring in public ownership and more services run by government, bit by bit. Fabius Maximus was a Roman general known for avoiding the big battle, wearing down his enemy and waiting for the right moment to strike. That's who they named themselves after. Jesus warned in Matthew chapter 7 verse 15, "Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves." 2 years after the society was formed, the Fabians put the same image on one of their own documents: a wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah, really. In 1895, leading Fabians helped found the London School of Economics. A year later, Sidney Webb wrote about the breeding of degenerate hordes who were unfit for social life, deciding who should have children and who shouldn't. And this wasn't some nutter who came to a meeting. Sidney Webb was one of the most important Fabians who ever lived. By 1900, the society had helped form the Labour Representation Committee, the organisation that became the Labour Party. George Bernard Shaw wrote, "The only fundamental and possible socialism is the socialisation of the selective breeding of man."
An arsehole.
H.G. Wells advocated controlling the reproduction of people he considered unfit.
Unbelievable.
And this is where it gets properly dark. Because in 1910, Sidney Webb called for preventing the continued procreation of people he described as feeble-minded and degenerate. His answer? Interfere, interfere, interfere. Just let that sink in. The same political circle arguing that the state should care for people throughout their lives was also arguing that the state should interfere with who was allowed to reproduce. Around 1910, the wolf appeared again in the Fabian window. George Bernard Shaw and Sidney Webb are shown hammering the world on an anvil beneath the words, "Remold it nearer to the heart's desire." And above them, the wolf in sheep's clothing. By the 1930s,
Sinister, isn't it? It's just sinister. This is the society Elbow has made presentations to, as a part of. Many in the ALP are.
Sidney and Beatrice Webb were praising Stalin's Soviet Union as a new civilization. Famine, forced collectivization, political repression, the purges, the gulag. Millions were starving, imprisoned or dead, while the Webbs presented the Soviet system as progress. They dismissed reports of millions dying in the famine as fantastically excessive. Even in 1942, they wrote, "Stalin is not a dictator." Yeah, course not, mate. They also called the Soviet Union the most inclusive and equalized democracy in the world. By 1945, the Fabians had gone from a small group in London to 229 members elected to Parliament,
Wow.
many serving under Clement Attlee. Then the names kept coming: Harold Wilson, James Callaghan, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown. The Society's own history says every Labour Prime Minister has been associated with it. Keir Starmer sat on its elected executive. When Labour won in 2024, the Fabian Society said Starmer and more than half his shadow cabinet were Fabian members. Its annual report also said the society had helped shape Labour's manifesto before it entered government. Rachel Reeves and David Lammy declared Fabian membership while serving in Starmer's cabinet. The society names Angela Rayner and Ed Miliband as prominent Fabians. Sadiq Khan was Fabian chair and is now one of its vice presidents. Their accounts name Meta, Lloyd's Banking Group, Maximus, the government contractor involved in DWP health and disability assessments, UNICEF, RUSI, insurers, trade unions. They say funders can't dictate what gets published. All right, and funding doesn't prove that any policy was bought. But fund the report, sponsor the conference, put your issue in front of MPs, advisors, and future ministers before the public even knows the argument has started.
Fabian lobby
Money
groups.
gets you into the conversation. That's how influence works in Westminster. The door to influencing policy is wide open.
Scott Challen, you're big into your lobby groups, which is fine. I agree with you. But you do talk about the Israeli lobby groups a bit. What about these guys, the Fabian lobby groups? They're doing far more damage to our country than any Israeli group is doing.
And now Andy Burnham is Prime Minister. He wrote for a Fabian Labour leadership pamphlet and appeared at their events for years. Around him sit Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband and Wes Streeting, their former vice chair. At least 12 people still serving as ministers had formally declared Fabian membership before the reshuffle. And that doesn't include every senior figure who held Fabian office, worked for the society, wrote for it, or repeatedly appeared on its platforms. And the mad bit? It's all public. The history, the members, the funders, the route into government. For more than 140 years, the same method has kept working. Get inside the institutions, build the network, wait. So remember Christ's warning. The wolf puts on the fleece, walks through the front door, takes a seat at the table, and by the time anybody looks up, is helping write the rules. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more long-form content like this, make sure you're subscribed and let me know what you want to see next in the comments. Since I started this project, I've been hit with all sorts of bollocks. Bans, restrictions, hit pieces, the lot. And your continued support means everything to me. If you like what we do, consider supporting future projects by buying a t-shirt at thenodeproject.com or buying us a coffee in the link in the description.
There you go. I gave him a shout out. I've watched a couple of his videos. They're very good, actually. And that's a great explanation of the Fabian Society and how they try to influence our way of life through the institutions, through our parliaments, our universities, our education system. And have no doubt, it's just as nefarious here in Australia. Most people tell me that doesn't fit the mold of people like Tony Burke, Chris Bowen, Albo, Kate Gallagher, all these arseholes that sit on the ALP front bench, Dan Andrews, Jacinta Allen, Ben Carroll maybe, he's more the right. So if he's in the factional right, he may not be a member of the Fabian Society. But if you're on the factional left of the ALP, no doubt you are part of the Fabian Society, or you've been influenced by it by being around people who are. And that is not a healthy position for our country. You've only got to look at that and study it. People should know more about the Fabian Society, then they'd understand our politics, especially on the left, a lot better. So that's it for me today. Sorry for the interruption with the power. Like I said, empty seat interview Friday, this Friday. Bianca and Warren from One Nation. I'll send you a message. You're more than welcome to join me. We'll dedicate the whole hour exclusively to you two. And if we need to go longer, we'll go longer. But that's up to you guys. Otherwise, I'm doing my empty seat interview. So Hopefully I can get one or two of you onto the podcast on Friday. Let's see. Or if you make a commitment to another podcast later next week, we'll do another empty seat interview with somebody else or just can it. So entirely your call. If I don't hear anything back, you are my guest on my empty seat interview on Friday. Tell us a bit about One Nation in Victoria and what's going on. But from me, my boy, down here at my feet, not on the couch, God bless you. God bless your kids. God bless your grandkids. God bless your pets. God bless our flag. God bless our country. And for the next couple of months, God bless this state of Victoria. Hopefully we can get something better than what we've had for the last 12 years. There was a frightening scenario to finish off with, is with the minority government with the Greens holding the balance of power. Like, let's just not even think about that. So anyway, I'll see you all tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. And I'm doing a special podcast tomorrow at 7 o'clock because we didn't do the podcast last night at 8 because I wanted to watch the Pauline Hanson stuff. And I've done that. And like I said, I thought it was okay. I wasn't blown out of my chair by it, but that's probably because I've followed her pretty closely. So I knew it was coming pretty much. So anyway, Pauline, how about you come on my podcast? We could have a right old good interview. So anyway, we'll talk soon, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. And if you want, tomorrow evening at 7. Bye for now.